Now we go into the next section where Marisa has a question about public transport.
Hello, my name is Maritza Toro. I'm urban planner in Leuven. I work for Bur. I work in designing tram lines and spatial planning. Okay, as you maybe know, all the cities are being transformed historically from the infrastructure, from the roads, from the highways. So, as urbanists, we have to work to see the future needs of the city in terms of mobility and then start planning the city. So, my question is, how can we transform a city through its transportation network?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Well, I think when we look at cities, how they were used to planned, I think they were used to plan for cars primarily. Mm-hmm. Our parents, the generation before us, designed cities to put cars in. Mm-hmm. Till the cars expanded too much and now we can't move around anymore. I think we should shift from that idea to making and designing cities for people and healthy cities for people. So if we want to transform the transportation network, what we know is what is healthy for people is to walk, to bike, and because I just read this last week that if people would walk every day 30 minutes, then we could reduce the risk on heart diseases by up to 40%. Mm-hmm. So you got lower health costs, etc. Mm-hmm. So if we want to transform the city, the transportation in a city, then I think we should definitely go for a healthy city where people can walk, where people can bike, with safe bike lanes, safe footpaths, and more public transport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to have the integration of all these.
Yes, well connected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's essential, and because it's, let's say, if you have the integration of them, so when you have a short distance, you can do by walking or by cycling. Yeah. And then you have a long distance, because some cities are very broad. So you can use like metros or buses, as long as they're efficient and you trust in them. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big lack of trusting in the public transport.
And maybe I just got one example that we can definitely transform cities. I was last year in New York, and they just, and I don't know exactly the amount of kilometers, but I thought it was over 100 or 150 kilometers of cycleways. And I rented a bike, and I went through Times Square and all the places with my bike, and I felt perfectly safe. They got safe cycle lanes, and they're trying to transform or reclaim a bit of the city of New York to cyclists and also to pedestrians, which is great. The entrance in front of Macy's, which is a big shopping mall, was first going and coming from cars, and now they reclaim that for pedestrians, and now it's a terrace you can drink and have a sandwich there, which is great. And if that can happen in the land where vehicles and cars, where people love their cars, then we can definitely do it everywhere in the world. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's...
There's one issue I wanted to bring up, because this we have kind of talked about before. But then there's other aspects that are very important and we don't actually think about that often, like how better logistics can improve people's lives. And there's many examples of that. For instance, in cities where you have poor sections that are like hard to reach, not only are the people who live there poor, they also have to pay more for the products that they consume because it's very hard to get them up the hill. For instance, this is like a typical Latin American example. Yeah. Or you see, for instance, big logistic hubs in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where prices are very cheap because products are passing by and then there's a lot of choice. But I guess, do you think about these issues?
I believe that, for example, the movement of goods is also an essential part of the living of a city. So what is happening in some of the cities, for example in São Paulo, what they are trying to do is to avoid the movement of people. So instead of you going to the center to do shopping, they try to make it close to your house. So instead of you creating another, let's say a higher capacity mobility connection, you just avoid this movement. And of course it's complicated because generally you have industrial areas and you have educational areas and residential areas. But if you can try to connect them and make you to everything more accessible, I think it's easier than if you just hire the capacity all the time.
I think, yeah, if I can just speak in on that,
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that in the next 10 years or so will play a big role is e-commerce. People buying stuff on the internet and having it delivered at home. I don't necessarily think that will be a solution for poorer areas, and I don't think that will drive the prices down. Probably it will drive the prices up. But on the other hand, it is part of a solution because it could potentially avoid a lot of unnecessary trips. You know, instead of you driving to the shop and then driving back, you know, you have a van driving around and dropping it off. So that's the kind of smart solutions that you could imagine for future city logistics.
Yeah, that's an interesting point indeed. So it's funny to see. I wanted to make the point. It's something that we don't think about, especially as young people, because it's just the way it is, and it's such a systematic change that we don't even realize. It's like a very high level meta thing. But then another question that's interesting is, as you were saying, the necessity of travel. Like sometimes we do it because we are forced, but it's not really the most optimal or necessary thing to do. Then reading some work by some engineers in transport, they were saying that we should probably keep the same volume of transport, but then of things transported, but in much shorter distances. So have a lot shorter ranges of delivery or of movement. What do you think about this?
That's of course. Well, I mean, yes, in theory, it would be better if we would eat potatoes that were grown outside the city. That's completely right. But of course, we live in a globalized world, in a globalized economy, and an economy that is getting more and more globalized, not less globalized. And so what you see is that, well, as long as transport remains very cheap, that the transport routes will get longer and longer. I mean, today it makes sense to have part of your iPod produced in China, then you do the second bit in Los Angeles, and then you ship it to Europe. Yeah. And that's possible because transport is just very, very cheap. And if you want to do something about that, if you really think that we need shorter distances and local production and local consumption, well, then you need to make transport a lot more expensive, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. But the thing is that the gas and the fuel, it's not taxed as it should be, because in the price there are not included all the negative externalities that it's causing. And if we just introduce a green tax that covers all those externalities, it would dramatically change all the structure of international trade.
It's good. I think a lot of people disagree with that, with the fuel prices at the moment. But you mean
they're high, but they should
be even higher, you think?
If we introduce this kind of green taxes, if you want to cover all the negative externalities that fuel consumption is causing in terms of pollution, and you want to like introduce that in the price, that would even rise the price and change even more the trade structure. That's the point.
If I can just add one short point to that, I think you're completely right, and of course fuel prices are very high, but a number of transport modes are not taxed at all. I think, for example, kerosene aviation fuel is not taxed. I think that's the same for maritime. So I think there it would make sense to well, at least create a level playing field where you pay VAT and tax.
Like just going back for the transformation that you could add for the cities as well with the transportation, I think there are so many alternatives of increasing the efficiency and safety in the cities. For example, ITS for the transport management, and also for you to have the journey planners for the citizens, because in this way you can feel that you're more connected, even because you have to find a way to integrate the citizens. Sometimes you have a city that people don't travel from one place to another because sometimes they don't know how to do it, or sometimes it takes too long or it's too pricey. So if you can integrate the city using smart mobility, and that are available in many of the main companies already have so many solutions, I think it's one of the ideas that you can transform the way that people live in to a quality of life.
Yeah, my question was more based on the physical transformation of a city. So of course we are creating in the stops hubs of the city. So of course if you make them attractive, you are connecting different spots of the city. So that's our transformation, the urban physical area, how we planned.
Well, a lot of interesting ideas once more, very good stuff. We have to round it up, unfortunately, because we need to go on to the next topic. Thank you.